Latin salutatory, quid durat, candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts, James Paul McLone.
Praeses Faust, decani, professores doctissimi, hospites insignes, familiares ter honorati, nec non vos omnes ubicum questis, qui hanc orationem tutubulo spectabitis, et ant omnes condiscipuli carissimi salvete. Concorde laetitiae pleno has sententias vobis offero. Hodie dum ad solem inclinat orbis ut califiat, et ver stati cedit. Nonne visa hiems numquam desitura, discesserunt autem nivis cumuli felicissimum dictu, et tandem glacies cum gemitu fugivit, indignata sub umbras. Hoc de transitu astrologi mirati sunt, atque rogaverunt philosophi, quid significaret? Vere, si tempestates atroces, tam facile abstergi possunt, quid durat? His festis, quae tantam turbam in theatrum tercentenarium trahunt, cursus studiorum nostrorum terminati decernuntur. Post hoc, fatum erit nobis, cum omnibus aliis alumnis annua vice redire, ut priora recordemur. Ac velut illi canes ialenses, arenam vel suam vel nostram, quot annis intrant, et quot annis discedunt gementes et flentes, illos dies memoria tenentes cum interdum vincerent. Haud secus nos redibimus, et juventutem laetam meminisse dolebimus. Tempus quidem nobis collegium apud Harvardianum breve fuit. Sed academia ipsa multos annos amnem Carolanum exsuperavit, atque patriae gentique servivit. Cum novi homines essemus, maximo cum convivio, fidibus ab io ma suaviter sonitis, patientia ingenti in imagine rubri ha confecta, annum alme matris tercentesimum septuagesimum quintum celebravimus, non univers in patria aequator haec aetas. Sed non dubitandumst, quin arx quoque summa propter fortunae varietatem cadat. Vocat in mentem, quodam saeculum futurum, quod reverenter nostrum antiquitatem nominat, et eo tempore viatorem ruinas Harvardianas aspicientem. Tante stragem civitatis tot hominum illustrorum fete mirator ille. Columnas passim confractas, statuam Johannes Harvard recubantis, templa marmorea aut latericia vacua, non deorum dearumque, sed scientiarum artiumque omnino stupet. Edes contemplans paulum pulvere submersas, ut non dissimiliter hodie stat novus portus. Illab imo pectore suspirat, propter magnificentiam perditam, quidnam durat. Nolit autem solicitesse, amici, qui academiae nostrae non in perpetuum ipsi manenti, est monumentum perennius ac pulchrius aere vel marmore vel latere, scilicet illa copula, quae secundum sententiam a poeta Horatio scriptam, et super quandam hoc campo portam ab maioribus inscriptam, tenet inrupta animas doctrine alme matris formatas usquad supremam diem. Ne de relinquamus hanc copulam o condiscipuli, sed capiamus et eam amplectamur. Nulle nos aspergant procelle, nec hiems ulla calorem frigidet fraternitatis. Valete!
Senior English Address, The Red Phone. Candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts, Jacob Silberg.
In every Harvard dorm, there is a little piece of history. A small red landline phone. Most of us probably disconnected it on our first day and stashed it in the back of a closet or under a futon. But imagine for a moment we left that red phone connected, and imagine that it rang. We'd have no idea who was calling or what they needed, or even if the call was meant for us. The only way to find out would be to pick up. Now we all have cell phones to make us more connected. But we are all so busy that usually when we get a call, we rush to silence it. We wonder, why didn't they just text me? I received a call about a year ago from a 16-year-old friend of mine named Avery. Avery had leukemia, and I had had lymphoma several years earlier. So naturally, we talked about sports. On this particular phone call, he told me about his Make-A-Wish trip to the Super Bowl with Jamie Foxx and Leonardo DiCaprio. Leo was the man, he told me. He was rocking this giant beard. And I met Kate Upton, and I was making her laugh, and she even gave me a kiss. I teased Avery that maybe there was still a chance he would get Kate Upton's number. But in the meantime, I was glad to hear he was doing so well. Tragically, about a week later, Avery passed away. It wasn't fair what happened to Avery, but I am always so grateful that he and I shared that phone call. The warmth and the joy in his voice always give me strength. A lot of things aren't fair. At the beginning of the year, Dean Karana asked us, do we want to prepare students for the world as it is, or the world as we want it to be? It is easy to disengage in the world as it is when we hear of the suffering of people from Iraq to Newtown, when we know the globe is warming and the middle class is shrinking. It is easy to think that no one can solve these big problems and to conclude that no one should try. But it is also easy to disconnect in smaller moments. It's easy to answer, "How are you?" with "busy," to end a conversation rather than feel vulnerable by opening up. It's easy to sweetly lie to those people in Harvard Square holding clipboards, "I'll be back soon," and then avoid them for the rest of the day. It is easy to be unavailable because each of us is working on something important. Engaging requires us to choose empathy, to set aside time for what is important to others. But at Harvard, in ways big and small, we engaged. We chose optimism over cynicism when we planned an educational trip to Israel and Palestine, or we gave a voice to refugees the world had left in the dust of Western Tanzania. We watched as fifth graders beamed at their state senator when she told them that they were all actually her boss. It reminded us that our democratic political system, so often a punchline, can still inspire. We chose to appreciate each other's gifts rather than view them as threats to our own. We brought a latte to a friend up all night in a lab across campus. We cheered together on spring break trips all over the world when Steve sank the shot to beat Yale as time expired. We chose empathy when we respectfully disagreed in class and said, "I'd just like to push back on that." In these moments, we glimpsed a world as we want it to be. Now, as we are about to leave this place, we're excited, even restless. But we worry. Will we like our new job? Will we get into the right grad school? Will our parents keep paying our cell phone bill? Most of all, I think we worry about losing our ability to choose. Next year, it will be easy to stress about big meetings and important presentations because our bosses will tell us that they matter. It will be easy to spend even more time being busy because that's how we're told to get ahead. It will be easy to disengage and forget those special moments that we shared here. But in this reality then, before we worry about changing the world, let's remember and let's choose not to let the world change us. Let's invite someone who looks lost to sit with us at lunch, like we might have in Annenberg. Let's give our neighbor directions like we would to tourists looking for the John Harvard statue. Let's keep making time for our friends, even when we have a million things we should be busy doing instead, like we did when we went out for drinks after our roommates turned in their theses. And like we did for more drinks when our roommates got their thesis grades back. Harvard graduate Robert Kennedy told South Africa under apartheid, "Each time we act to improve the lot of others, we send forth a tiny ripple of hope. Crossing each other from a million different centers, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression." I see in front of me thousands of ripples toward a world as we want it to be. I see in our collective imaginations and our combined actions the beginning of a mighty current. Robert Kennedy's brother, President Kennedy, installed in the Oval Office a direct hotline to the head of the Soviet Union, popularly depicted as a small, red landline phone. They used it in times of crisis to build a momentary connection. Today, it would be easy to pretend there is nothing we can do, to disconnect, to stash other people's problems in the back of a closet or under a futon. But instead, let's connect our red phones and make ourselves available for those small, serendipitous moments when someone needs us. Let's engage, even when it makes us feel vulnerable, because how we treat each other, bit by bit, will affect how leaders treat leaders and how nations treat nations. As we celebrate our commencement, let's always remember that our diploma is not a piece of paper. Rather, it is a call to see the world as it is and still choose to imagine a world as we want it to be. Right now, the phone is ringing off the hook. Answering that call requires us to make time. But when we answer, I believe we will always be so grateful that we did.
Graduate English Address, a disruptive, innovative, scalable valuation. Candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Anna Fifi Wong Erickson.
Shoot for the moon, and if you fall short, at least you'll be amongst the stars. It's a nice sentiment, if only it were true. It's more like, shoot for the moon, and if you fall short, you'll be amongst the enormous amount of trash orbiting the Earth. Now that's true, so don't fall short. Or maybe best not to shoot for the moon. Like most people, I'm open to taking risks as long as I'm guaranteed a positive outcome that comes at no cost to myself. So when people say things like, take risks, be bold, change the world, I'm left with a burning, unanswered question: why? Especially since doing such things might actually kill me. But the answer started to take shape during my time at Harvard, with credit due to a former undergrad. For the last 5 years, I've been a resident tutor in Mather House. Where it's truly been a joy to work with hundreds of amazing students to whom I've doled out such insightful wisdom as, do not go to grad school. Unless you're willing to endure long periods of failure on a daily basis, punctuated only rarely by incremental progress. Am I right? One day over lunch, a student told me she was nervous about talking to a professor about a low exam score. Before she left, I said, just remember that you have intrinsic worth apart from your accomplishments. And she was stunned and said, is that really true? I mean, doesn't everyone judge you based on your accomplishments? Oh, right. But the thing about intrinsic worth is that you have it inherently. It's part of your personhood. You can't earn it with accomplishments, and therefore you can't lose it with failures. Nothing can take it away. But it's easy to forget, since the world often reduces us to the sum of our achievements and has a long memory of our failures. It's tough to believe something if no one else affirms it, even if it is true. 2 weeks later, I saw the same student on the M2 shuttle heading back to Cambridge from the medical school. It's 2 miles away, so during the next 45 minutes on the bus, she asked me how my research was going. Poorly, as usual, I replied. And immediately she said, well, remember you have intrinsic worth apart from your accomplishments. I had to smile. A student actually remembered something I said. But seriously, her reminder really struck me. And as I pondered it over the years, I realized that intrinsic worth is at the core of resolving those nagging questions: why take risks when they come at such a cost? And how to even dare in the face of crushing failure. Having worth that cannot be lost provides the strength to persevere. You have a reserve you can draw upon when everything is falling apart and you feel unjustly pressed on all sides. Not everything is on the line because even when you fail, you still have worth. You can still get up again. Failure doesn't have to destroy you, which means you can afford to be bold, to resist the crowd, to do what's right. Usually, challenges to take risks ultimately appeal to our narcissism with promises of high risk, high reward. However, this is an ineffective motivator, since most of us are jaded, low-risk, high-reward people. It's also called being logical. But recognizing intrinsic worth in other people broadens our perspective. My student later told me that knowing her own worth changed her life. How much more life-changing, disruptive even, would it be if we affirmed worth not only in ourselves, but also in other people? What if we acted like it? Wouldn't we be a bit more compassionate, a bit more considerate in criticism, a bit more courageous to fight injustice? How different our news headlines would be. A person has inherent value. It's part of our shared humanity, and that should compel us to act boldly for the sake of others, even when it's costly. Recognizing intrinsic worth simultaneously motivates and sustains us to take those risks to change the world. And we mustn't think that changing the world only applies to special people with special circumstances to help the poor or the sick or a developing country far away. Every person fundamentally desires to be fully known and fully loved despite their flaws. In essence, to have their intrinsic worth affirmed. So as my student did for me, remind each other in the midst of life's trivialities and great opportunities. You have extraordinary worth apart from your accomplishments, and nothing can remove it, not even yourself. And if you live confident that your worth is already secure, then you might actually begin to change the world.
These addresses by selected candidates for ordinary degrees being ended, the deans of the several departments will now present to the President and Fellows and to the Board of Overseers, in the favoring presence of the friends here assembled, the candidates on whom the various academic distinctions are, with due ceremony, to be conferred. The Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. In the name of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and by its authority, I have the honor to report on 4 groups of candidates who will be presented to you today. First, the Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences will present candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and then the degrees of Master of Arts and of Science. Next, the Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences will present candidates for the degrees of Master of Science and of Engineering. Third, the Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension will present candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts and Extension Studies. Finally, near the close of these ceremonies, the seniors in Harvard College who are candidates for the first degree in arts or in science will stand proudly before you. The candidates in each of these groups have, by vote of the faculty, fulfilled the requirements for the degrees for which they are severally recommended. I salute all these women and men, trusting that they will forever wisely enjoy the freedoms that their education has given to them, while bearing the responsibilities that their learning demands of them. Each of these groups will now be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs in which they have been enrolled.
This is Dean Mike Smith of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences.
Candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy will rise.
Private place, the very first to be awarded degrees, the PhDs.
The Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
Xiao Li Ming.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these scholars, all of whom have devoted themselves to the rigorous pursuit of advanced study, have attained high distinction, and have made original contributions to knowledge in their several fields of scholarship.
By virtue of authority delegated to me and recognizing your high academic achievements, I confer on you, women and men of learning, the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and I welcome you to the ancient and universal company of scholars and entrust to you the free inquiry of future generations. Congratulations.
PhDs are the first degree granted, and that's really because it's the highest degree at the university.
583 PhDs, welcome to the universal company of scholars.
Candidates from the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences for the degrees of Master of Arts and Master of Science will rise. The Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of Board of Overseers. As Dean of Graduate School of Arts Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these candidates, all of whom have completed a commendable step of advanced studies in their respective disciplines.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Arts or Master of Science, and certify that you have surmounted with distinction the first stage of graduate study. Congratulations.
Most of these students getting a Master of Arts or Master of Science are actually in PhD programs, and this signifies their completion of the coursework phase of their study.
Candidates from the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences for the degrees of Master of Science and Master of Engineering will rise. With appreciation for his service this semester, I recognize the Interim Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences.
That's Professor Harry Lewis, former Dean of Harvard College, computer scientist, and acting.
Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these women and men who have completed the first step of advanced study in engineering and applied sciences.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Science or Master of Engineering, and certify that you have surmounted with distinction the first stage of graduate study. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies will rise.
More than 700 graduates this year, 762.
The Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension.
Hunt Lambert, Dean of the
Madam
School
President,
of Extension.
fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of Continuing Ed and University Extension, I present to you these students, candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelors of Liberal Arts, and Masters of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, or Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies, and admit you to the fellowship of educated men and women. Congratulations.
Quite a group standing there, and as you said, there are well over 600 of them this year. St. Martin's, Psalm 78.
the graduate schools.
The Dean of the Faculty of Medicine.
Jeffrey Flyer, Dean of the Faculty of Medicine.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. In the name of the Faculty of Medicine and by its authority, I have the honor to report today that 2 groups of candidates in the fields of medicine and dental medicine have fulfilled the requirements of the faculty for the degrees for which they are recommended. They will be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs in which they are enrolled.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Medical Sciences, and Master of Medical Sciences will rise.
You see the large toothbrush carried by the dental doctoral students.
The Dean of the School of Dental Medicine.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the School of Dental Medicine, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has devoted 4 years to the study of dental medicine, or at least 3 years to postdoctoral studies aimed at improving health and the quality of life.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Medical Sciences, or Master of Medical Sciences, and declare that you are qualified for practice and research in a demanding branch of medicine. Congratulations.
It's a wonderful group of students. I know one of the doctors in that group. And Bruce Donoff has been Dean of the School of Dental Medicine.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Medicine and Master of Medical Science will rise.
There they are in the back.
The Dean for Medical Education.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean for Medical Education, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has worked hard and well to prepare for a life of service and learning in medicine.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Medicine or Master of Medical Science, and declare that as physicians, you are ready to engage in an honorable and merciful calling. Congratulations.
160 newly minted doctors of medicine, MDs.
Candidates for the degree of Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, and Doctor of Theology will rise.
These are awarded in order,
the Dean
reverse
of the Faculty
order
of
the
Divinity.
age of the institution. Dean David Hempton.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Faculty of Divinity, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has devoted 2 or 3 or more years to theological and religious studies in preparation for careers as leaders in scholarship and vocations of service.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, or Doctor of Theology, and declare that you are well prepared to foster the health and vitality of communities of faith, to further scholarship in religious studies, and to help in shaping the shared values of the broader society. Congratulations.
It's a new citation as the nature of the divinity school changes to more religious
Candidates
studies.
for the degrees of Doctor of Law, Master
So this means the law
of
school
Laws
is somewhat
and
younger
Doctor
than the
of
divinity
Juridical
school.
Science will rise.
Waving gavels, I
The
believe.
Dean of the Faculty of Law.
The law school has 761 graduates
Madam
this year.
President, Fellows of Harvard College,
Martha Minow, Dean of the Law School.
Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Faculty of Law,
They just love her.
I have the honor to present to you these women and men. Each of whom has completed a degree in legal studies towards the end of advancing justice and promoting the rule of law.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Law, Master of Laws, or Doctor of Juridical Science, and declare that you are ready to aid in the shaping and application of those wise restraints that make us free. Congratulations.
What an enthusiastic group. And of course, tomorrow at Radcliffe Day, there will be Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justice David Souter, Margaret Marshall, a host of distinguished personages in the law.
Candidates for the degrees of Master in Business Administration, Master in Management Research, and Doctor of Business Administration have already risen.
This is a huge group.
The Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration.
918 altogether.
Fellows of Harvard College, Mr.
Nitin
President,
Noria.
members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration, it is my great honor to present to you these women and men who have mastered the study of business administration and prepared themselves to become leaders who will make a difference in the world.
The business school students are not going to be outdone by the law
Virtue
students.
of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master in Business Administration, Master in Management Research, or Doctor of Business Administration, and testify that you are ready to lead people and organizations in enterprises that will serve society. Congratulations.
A very, very strong student body, all of whom get sent off in their first year to do work in some other country during their January term. The new dean, well, relatively new now, 5 years, I think. Nitin
Candidates
Noria
for
has
the
made a
several
tremendous
degrees in architecture, landscape architecture, urban planning and design will rise.
This is Mohsen Mostafavi, the Dean of the Graduate School of Design.
The Dean of the Faculty of Design.
324 graduate students.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As the Dean of the Faculty of Design, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has qualified for a master's degree in architecture, landscape architecture, urban design, urban planning, or design studies, or for the degree of Doctor of Design.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer on each of you the degree for which you have qualified and declare your competence to lead in shaping the spaces in which we live. Congratulations.
Candidates for the several degrees in public health will rise. With warm thanks for his leadership at Harvard, and congratulations on his appointment as the next president of the University of Miami, I call on the Dean of the Faculty of Public Health.
This is Julio Frank.
Julio Frank, former health minister from Mexico.
Madam President, fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As proud Dean of the Faculty of Public Health, I have the great honor to present to you these fine women and men, each of whom has qualified for a master's degree or a doctor's degree to provide leadership, advance knowledge, and improve the public's health.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees in public health for which your studies have qualified you, and declare that you are well prepared to generate and utilize knowledge to improve health throughout the world. Congratulations.
The School of Public Health has been named the T.H. Chan School of Public Health this year.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Education, Doctor of Education Leadership, and Master of Education will rise.
The Education School.
They're waving children's books, I believe.
702 graduates this year from the Graduate School of Education.
It's extraordinary truth. Look at them.
Look at those books. How wonderful.
The Dean of the Faculty of Education.
This is James
Madam
Ryan.
President, fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Education, I have the honor to present to you these women and men who will be leaders in education practice, policy, and research.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on each of you the master's or doctor's degree in education and declare that you are well prepared to guide and serve the learning needs of contemporary society. Congratulations.
This is the first year that James Ryan has been the Dean of the School of Education, and clearly is received with enormous enthusiasm and respect.
With deep gratitude, candidates for the degrees of Master in Public Administration, Master in Public Administration and International Development, and Master in Public Policy will rise again.
Waving globes.
With deep gratitude for his 11 years leading the Harvard Kennedy School, I recognize the Dean of the Faculty of Government.
David Elwood, his final commencement.
Madam President, fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Government, it is my high honor and very great pleasure to present to you these extraordinary women and men, each of whom has qualified for service, for public service in the common good.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree for which your studies have qualified you, and testify that you are well prepared to offer leadership in the quest for enlightened public policy and effective public service throughout the world. Congratulations.
The Harvard Kennedy School really epitomizes Harvard's commitment to public service. So many graduates go off to public leadership roles in one way or another.
And international as well. I mean, they have the International Fellows Program, etc.
Absolutely. It's really all around the world, Harvard's impact.
Ralph Vaughan Williams, oh, clap your hands.
Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or of Science will rise.
And here they are, all
soon to be graduates of Harvard College.
1,612 of them.
And they will soon ask the summas to approach.
Their chosen representatives, together with candidates for those degrees summa cum laude, will draw near.
Their chosen representatives with the degree candidates for
Well, you
summa
asked for him, the Dean
will
of
draw
Harvard
near.
College.
Dean Rakesh Khurana, who is immensely popular.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of Harvard College, I have the great honor.
Usually the summas don't
to
draw
present
so
to
near.
you these women and men, each of whom has fulfilled the faculty's requirements for the first degree in arts or in science. Each candidate stands ready to advance knowledge, to promote understanding, and to serve our society.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the first degree in arts or in science and admit you to the fellowship of educated men and women. Congratulations.
And now she rises from that Jacobean chair to go down and, along with Dean Carano, shake the hands and congratulate the chosen representatives. Those are the marshals elected by the class, and those who are graduating summa cum laude. There are 79 of them today. I see one of ours, Anna Hagen, in the front row there, who's won a Marshall Scholarship to study drama.
There's so many wonderful individual stories.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable stories of accomplishment and hard work represented by all of these graduates today.
I think they're expecting something else to happen.
I think it's now time for the honorary degrees.
It is. No one wants to sit down.
By virtue of authority delegated to me by the two governing boards, I now confer the following honorary degrees. The provost will introduce the candidates.
When our first guest was a junior in college, a friend asked him what he planned to do with his life. He said he'd just read a magazine article in a dentist's office. It made him think he'd become an actuary. That, his friend replied, would be really boring. The friend convinced him to spend the next summer at the Earth Observatory in Palisades, New York, affiliated with Columbia University. That was 1952. He's been there ever since. After earning 3 degrees at Columbia, then joining its faculty, he rose to become one of the world's greatest geoscientists, often called the grandfather of climate science. He may be best known among his peers for identifying what he calls a great conveyor belt of ocean currents that crucially influences the Earth's climate. The discovery is regarded as one of the most significant in the history of oceanography. He has been a pioneer in methods to detect how the Earth's climate has changed over the course of hundreds of thousands of years. He has shown how climate can change not just gradually, but abruptly, with potentially dire consequences. His voice was among the first, and it remains among the most forceful in sounding the alarms about the perils posed by the rise of greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere. And he has not only used deep scientific analysis to highlight the problem, he has increasingly focused on the search for effective solutions. We honor the man who has been called the world's leading interpreter of the Earth's operation as a biological, chemical, and physical system, Columbia's Newberry Professor of Geology, Wallace Broecker.
Wally Broecker, really the father of my own field, climate and paleoclimate, chemical oceanography. Brilliant man, huge legacy of achievement.
Prescient Poseidon of geoscience, fathoming the depths and currents of climate change. He has peered far into our planet's past and compelled our concern for its future. Wallace Smith Broecker, Doctor of Science.
I heard last night, it was 1975, that's some time ago, that his first articles on global warming would have come out.
That's right. In 1975, he wrote an article talking about the
What leads us to
warming
cooperate?
that was coming. It was prescient.
Our next guest, an illustrious political scientist, has shaped the understanding of what induces us to come together rather than to go our separate ways. His career itself has epitomized cooperation in his remarkable range of fertile collaborations with scholars within and beyond his own field. His publications on the evolution and complexity of cooperation stand among the world's most frequently cited writings in the social sciences, and he has brought his theoretical insights to bear on a sweeping range of problems, from the avoidance of nuclear war to the nature of biological evolution, from international trade to cybersecurity to cooperation among cancer cells. Past president of the American Political Science Association, he is the extraordinarily rare social political scientist to have been honored with the National Medal of Science. His methods draw on complexity theory, game theory, and computer modeling in ways that have continually shaped the frontier of his field. As a pair of colleagues recently wrote, it is hard to name an active political scientist anywhere in the world whose ideas have had such a powerful impact on such a wide range of human inquiry and action. It's not only academics who have felt his touch. When Bono was asked the secret to U2's longevity as a rock band, he reportedly cited our guest's seminal book on the evolution of cooperation. We proudly welcome a rock star of social science, the Walgreen Professor for the Study of Human Understanding at the University of Michigan, Robert Axelrod.
Right behind him is Robert Putnam, who certainly has furthered that field of the evolution of cooperation.
Absolutely.
Impelled by the perils of nuclear war, intrigued by biology's complex puzzles, a paramount scholar of cooperation and modeling, and a model of scholarly cooperation. Robert M. Axelrod, Doctor of Laws.
Beautiful citation.
What's that smell? You should ask our next guest. One of the world's foremost experts on the biology of sensory perception. She discovered how molecules in the environment are detected by tiny receptors in the nose, then translated by the brain into specific smells. Her work marked a breakthrough in solving a long-standing scientific enigma. It showed that the olfactory system in mammals is far more complex than had been understood earlier, with hundreds of different receptors responsible for detecting tens of thousands of different odors. Born in Seattle to a mother who loved word puzzles and a father who was an electrical engineer, she developed an early fascination with science. As a postdoc at Columbia, she played a crucial role in first identifying odor receptors. Then, as a member of the Harvard Medical School faculty for a decade, she broke open her field by showing how the brain organizes signals from those receptors to let us perceive a vast multitude of scents. For her path-breaking discoveries about the olfactory system, she shared a Nobel Prize in 2004, and thus she discovered the sweet smell of success. Concluding her Nobel autobiography, she wrote, "I sincerely hope that my receiving this prize will send a message to young women everywhere that the doors are open to them and that they should follow their dreams." We welcome back to Harvard an investigator of the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, a professor at the University of Washington, and a leading member of the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, Linda Buck.
Linda Buck, a brilliant medical researcher.
How we recognize smell. I mean, imagine. And she's being escorted by Catherine Dulac.
Aficionada of olfaction, pioneer in the perception of common and uncommon sense. Her research on receptors has revolutionized what science knows of the nose. Linda Buck, Doctor of Science.
Utterly brilliant citation. That's wonderful. What science knows of the nose. You can see on stage Linda Greenhouse, 2 people back.
She grew up here in Cambridge, the daughter of a poet and a Harvard economics professor. She studied history and literature at Radcliffe, then received her PhD in fine arts from Harvard. 50 years after her first Harvard doctorate, we welcome her home for an honorary second to recognize her career as one of the most original and influential art historians of her generation. Decades ago, she seized the attention of art scholars with her book, The Art of Describing, which one critic called the most brilliant, erudite, and provocative attempt to characterize 17th century Dutch art in many years. Her publications have transformed the understanding of works by Dutch masters such as Vermeer and Rembrandt, as well as other painters, including Rubens, Velázquez, Tiepolo, and Vasari. She is perhaps best known for an approach that features what has been called radical close looking, focusing intently on pictures, paintings as pictures that describe the world, rather than as works that embed narratives and hidden meanings. From her early days, choosing to focus on Dutch art when Italian art was more in vogue, she has dared to be different, challenging the conventions of her field and inspiring independence of mind in others. "You can't write anything first-rate," she has said, "without getting attacked." From her first article, one colleague writes, she has surprised, delighted, and vexed her readers with novel readings and viewings of artists about whom it would seem we had said it all. We honor a professor emerita at the University of California at Berkeley and a longtime member of the Harvard family, Svetlana Alpers.
Art historian, twice doctorate.
Connoisseur of the craft of informed looking, transformative force in the history of art. She posits that pictures need eyes and not words, and spurs us to see the familiar anew. Svetlana Leontiev Alpers, Doctor of Arts.
Beautifully eloquent.
Our next guest is perhaps best known as the nimble-fingered bass player for the legendary musical group, the Professors of Bluegrass. He also moonlights as president of a modestly selective university in South Central Connecticut. Perhaps best known for having come agonizingly close to completing an undefeated Ivy football season last fall. but not quite. His professors of bluegrass are revered for such favorites as, I'm blue, I'm lonesome. I've endured, man in the middle. Dim lights, thick smoke. That wistful tune dear to the hearts of fundraisers everywhere, I ain't broke. And that old classic, I'm just an old chunk of coal, but I'm gonna be a diamond someday. All these tunes richly evoke the boundless pleasures and the occasional perplexities of his day job. His service since July 2013 as the 23rd president of our dearly beloved and occasionally rivalrous sibling, Yale University. After college at Stanford, he landed in New Haven some 35 years ago. Since then, he has done just about everything a Yale man possibly could do. Two master's degrees, a PhD, professor of psychology, founder of the Health, Emotion, and Behavior Laboratory, leading figure in interdisciplinary research centers on AIDS and cancer, department chair, dean of the college, dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and of course, the exalted role of university provost. He is an extraordinary scholar, a pioneer in developing the concept of emotional intelligence, or EI. He is an extraordinary teacher, winner of Yale teaching prizes and mentor to countless grateful students. Above all, he is an extraordinary human being, an embodiment of the emotional intelligence that he studies in others, and someone who, in one colleague's words, is just an astonishingly human guy. Not only that, but he assures us he has already signed up for CS50 next fall. With familial pride and a hearty bow, wow, wow,
the Yale fight
we
song.
honor a native son of Cambridge, Massachusetts, our friend and colleague, Peter Salovey.
That is wonderful. Do you know him, Michelle?
I know Peter. I serve on his Yale's advisory council. I meet with him twice a year. He really has an extraordinary commitment to the quality of education for undergraduates there.
Superlative psychologist and bulldog in chief, who likes his Veritas with a dash of Luke's. A warm and wise Eli of high EI, whose world, like his grass, is ever blue. Peter Salovey, Doctor of Laws.
You know, I think she writes these citations herself, and they are quite wonderful, the citations. Beautiful, poetic.
Yeah,
what a
she
great
must be
guy.
careful. He may get her back someday.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You can't understand most of the important things from a distance, his grandmother used to tell him. You have to get close. Since his days as a student at our law school and Kennedy School, he has devoted his life to getting closer and closer to the American criminal justice system and to scores and scores of people accused or convicted of crimes, many of them sentenced to die. The closer he has come to that system and to the people within it, the more resolutely he has affirmed his core belief. The true measure of our character, he writes, is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned. That belief has shaped his career as one of the nation's most admired and effective public interest lawyers. Devoted to serving death row inmates, juvenile offenders, people wrongly convicted or charged with violent crimes, poor people denied effective representation, and others whose trials have been marked by racial bias or prosecutorial misconduct. He is the founder and leader of the Equal Justice Initiative, based in Montgomery, Alabama. His organization carries forward its work in 4 broad domains: race and poverty, children in prison, mass incarceration, and the death penalty. In the words of one criminal justice expert, he surely has done as much as any other living American to vindicate the innocent and temper justice with mercy for the guilty. And in forums far beyond the courtroom, he has spoken and written with searing eloquence about the meaning of justice and mercy in a nation so often focused on punishment and retribution. He urges that we face up to the volatile interplay of race, poverty, and justice in America. And he does so in a spirit not of rancor, but of hope. We proudly honor Bryan Stevenson.
Bryan Stevenson, really an extraordinary leader
and a great
justice.
model. I mean, for so many of these law students for whom public interest law is really primary. Of course, there are some who are going to corporate law. And
Just an inspiring example
this is really an
of leadership,
inspiration.
public service.
His deep conviction that justice must be done has undone convictions of the wrongly accused. Tireless, dauntless, his eyes on the prize, he presses on the upward way to point us toward a higher ground. Bryan Stevenson, Doctor of Laws.
What a wonderful choice. Really, our commitment to public service.
She started out teaching high school in Deep Creek, Virginia, a stone's throw from wetlands known as the Great Dismal Swamp. In the years to follow, she emerged as a preeminent figure in American education and a historic figure at Harvard. A graduate of Purdue and Columbia, she led Barnard College's education program for a decade. She built an academic career as one of the premier scholars of the history of American education and of women in education. In 1974, she became a vice president of Radcliffe College and a professor at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. In 1977, she accepted President Carter's appointment to direct the National Institute of Education, a federal agency dedicated to education research. She returned to Cambridge, and in 1982 was named Dean of Harvard's Faculty of Education, the first woman ever to serve as dean of one of Harvard's faculties. She led our ed school with distinction for nearly a decade. She sharpened its focus on K-12 public schooling. She deepened its attention to the persistent inequalities in American education. Her trailblazing has never been about seizing the limelight, one colleague writes. It has always been focused on bringing her enormous energy, political instincts, and good judgment to the labors of leadership, scholarship, and community building. She has served as president of both the Spencer Foundation and the National Academy of Education, as chair of the Carnegie Foundation, as vice president of both the American Historical Association and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. When educational institutions look for leadership and wisdom, they know where to turn. Today, it is our turn to salute our own Charles Warren Professor of the History of American Education Emerita, Patricia Graham.
Here she is. Her escort right behind her is Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot from the School of Education. But Pat Graham, very well known in this community and in this university.
How schooling can foster both knowledge and virtue has set the syllabus for her singular life. An adroit leader and trustee, she has not just illuminated history, but made it. Patricia Albire Graham, Doctor of Laws.
Most years, Harvard includes at least one member of our retired faculty in the list of honorary degrees, and this year it's Patricia Graham.
As a boy in the former Belgian Congo, he accompanied his father, a pastor, to minister to the sick. One day, a sick child asked the pastor for medicine. The pastor explained he was not a doctor. And so, thought the pastor's son, a doctor is what I must someday be. As he grew up, he saw the distressingly poor medical resources for women in his country. So he went to France, where he studied to become a gynecologist. In the years since, he has emerged as a heroic figure in the Democratic Republic of Congo. There, he has devoted his heart and soul to caring for women and girls who have survived the brutal sexual violence endemic to the conflict that has plagued the country for almost 2 decades. Militias and gangs have deployed rape as a weapon of war, bringing devastation to individuals, families, entire communities. He founded the Pansy Hospital, known worldwide for its leadership in treating survivors of sexual violence. There, he directs a program that tends not only to his patients' physical abuse, but to their psychological trauma as well. And he does not stop there. He seeks the survivors' reintegration into society through vocational programs and access to social services. Countless women and girls have been the beneficiaries of his care. Far beyond his hospital, he has become an impassioned international advocate for Congolese women, demanding attention to the barbarity that they continue to endure and urging an end to the violence. In 2012, armed intruders took his daughters hostage. They shot his security guard to death. They fired at him, and he narrowly escaped assassination before the assailants fled the scene. Still, he carries on. A recipient of the Sakharov Prize for Human Rights and numerous honors worldwide, he maintains his faith and courage in the face of the unspeakable. The power of darkness will be defeated, he insists. We must respond to violence with love. We honor Dr. Denis Mukwege.
Denis Mukwege, founder of the Panzi Foundation.
Extraordinary both as a surgeon, but also, look at everyone is rising. It's extraordinary. His escort is Jennifer Leaning, who is the head of the FXB Center for Human Rights at the School of Public Health.
That's right, and Jennifer was the head of the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative. She, an emergency room doctor, so much experience in war-torn areas, dealing with disaster relief. This is just an inspired choice.
Yes.
An incarnation of courage and compassion, giving succor to his country's women of valor. For him, it is always a time to heal and a time to build up, a time to love and a time for peace. Dennis Mukwege, Doctor of Science.
That combination of science and service in medicine and human rights is so critical.
The combination of
here.
compassion with also...
If you've ever doubted whether the words diva and divine share the same origin, you need only listen to our next guest sing, as you have. I cannot imagine a more satisfying calling than my own, she writes. Beauty, humanity, and history every day, combined with the cathartic joy of singing. Multiply her own joy by millions, and you begin to measure the exhilaration that her singing brings to admirers around the world. She grew up the daughter of 2 vocal music teachers in a home where singing filled the air. At age 3, she gave her first solo performance in the indelible role of Susie Snowflake. By grade school, it was The Sound of Music and My Fair Lady. After singing jazz in college and graduate study at Eastman and Juilliard, she ascended to opera's upper echelons as the Contessa in the Houston Grand Opera's Marriage of Figaro, and then as Mimi in the New York Opera's La Bohème. Before long, she was gracing the stage of the Metropolitan Opera, where she has by now made more than 220 performances in 21 roles. Among her hundreds of memorable performances and her scores of leading roles on stages worldwide. Her vast repertoire ranges from Strauss to Mozart, from Handel to Massenet, from Verdi to Dvorak. Did I hear Dvorak? Acclaimed by critics, beloved by audiences, she is known for a soprano voice described as sumptuous, magnificent, transcendent. A voice likened to glistening silver or double cream. Opera star, recording artist, champion of new music, sometime jazz and indie rock singer, author, television host, teacher, literacy advocate, fashion icon, Broadway leading lady, recipient of the National Medal of Arts, possessor of what many have simply called America's beautiful voice. Singers, she once wrote, have a complicated relationship with applause. I ask that you join me in making this an extremely complicated moment for Renee Fleming.
Sometimes called the people's diva because she has such a voice that is so appealing to everyone.
Consummate Contessa, soprano sublime, exalting her art for exultant audiences, renowned for her arias, but not for her airs. When her voice soars, our hearts sing. Renee Fleming, Doctor of Music.
Such an inspiration, and of course with Lowell House we have an opera every year in the house. An inspiration for them too.
Absolutely.
He has lived what he calls an improbable life. He grew up in poverty on Chicago's South Side. After junior high, he found his way to Milton Academy in Massachusetts, thanks to an organization fittingly called A Better Chance. He tells the story of heading off to his first day of class at Milton, mindful that boys were required to wear jackets and ties. He arrived at class in his best jacket, a sporty blue windbreaker fresh off the rack from Sears. He looked around at the blue blazers and tweed and realized he'd entered a totally unfamiliar world. Not just a different place, he has said, but a different planet. He learned to navigate Planet Milton, then Harvard College. After a fellowship year in Sudan, he conquered Harvard Law School. He launched his legal career as a public-spirited young lawyer at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. After time in private practice, he rose to become the nation's top civil rights officer as Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. After senior positions in the corporate world, he made his first bid for elected office as a relative unknown, mounting a grassroots campaign for governor of Massachusetts. As we all know, against the odds, he won. In his inaugural speech, he invoked the early Massachusetts settlers who saw their new home as a shining city on a hill. To this kid from the south side of Chicago, he said, "Massachusetts is my shining city on a hill." And for the next 8 years, he invested his all in making it shine. In education, healthcare, innovation, economic opportunity, equality and inclusion, life sciences and technology, environmental responsibility. Perhaps most of all, in seeking to inspire a sense of true commonwealth, a community in which each cares about the well-being of all. At our best, he has said, we are for each other. We are about seeing our own stake in our neighbors' dreams and struggles, as well as our own. That belief not only echoes through his public pronouncements, it has shown through every aspect of his remarkable, if improbable, life. It is a special pleasure to recognize the 71st Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and of at least equal note, a fellow alumnus of Dunster House, the Honorable Deval Patrick.
Extraordinary story.
The faculty giving him a standing ovation for his service.
Deval, when he was here, they didn't call them first gen, the first generation of his family to attend college, but he was. And now that first generation is 14% of this graduating class.
Exemplar and exponent of the American dream, embracing Commonwealth as a lived ideal. He has worn his excellency with humility and grace, while kindling in others a reason to believe. Deval L. Patrick, Doctor of Laws.
Governor Patrick, the final honorary degree recipient.
And he will, of course, be giving the address this afternoon at 2 o'clock.
In the name of this Society of Scholars, I declare that these persons are entitled to the rights and privileges pertaining to their several degrees, and that their names are to be forever borne on its roll of honorary members.
Degree candidates and their guests, and all alumni, are warmly invited to attend the afternoon session of Commencement Day exercises under the direction of the Harvard Alumni Association. The Alumni Parade will begin at 1:45 p.m. and the exercises will begin at 2:30 p.m. The commencement speakers will be the Honorable Deval L. Patrick and the President of Harvard University. The commencement choir will now lead us in the singing of the commencement hymn, and following the hymn, the Pusey minister will pronounce the benediction. The commencement exercises then being ended, the Sheriff of Middlesex County will declare the meeting adjourned. The audience is requested to remain seated until the President and Fellows and their guests have withdrawn from the platform.
Commencement hymn is in Latin. It's not translated in the program. Beginning Deus Omnium Creator.
Go in peace. Speak the truth. Give thanks for each day. Be quick to compliment liberally. Learn to love out loud. Be slow to criticize. And if you do so discreetly and constructively. Love yourself. For loving yourself is a precondition for loving your neighbor. Realize, in the words of Brian Stevenson, each of us is more than the worst act we've ever committed. Yet be humble enough to realize that none of us is as good as the best thing we will ever accomplish. Live simply. Be of service. Give yourself to a cause bigger than yourself. And when we do these things, we will begin to approximate what it means to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before our God. Amen.
The Pusey minister, James Walton, aspiring
Even some applause for the prayer.
The sheriff must be 6'6".
As the High Sheriff of Middlesex County, I declare that the meeting will be adjourned!
He loves this role very clearly and does it well. And the meeting is adjourned. At this point, the procession will move from the platform, and we're hearing the first of the bells. All over Cambridge, there are many, every single church in Cambridge is ringing bells at this moment. And one important institution that is not a church, that is Lowell House, which has its great swan, its great collection of 17 wonderful Russian bells.
There was the president and the provost and the head of the Board of Overseers processing out. You see the band playing the recessional. Faculty are slowly filing out. What a magnificent day it's been. Not too hot,
really
full of
perfect.
just extraordinary talent all around us. And really just an optimism, ready to go off and change the world for the better.
A sense here of just the sea of people and change the world for the better, yes. This day is so important in their lives. Yet, as Drew Faust said in her inaugural address, that this university is not simply about the present, about what happens on a day like today, but is also about the past and the future, that we're accountable not just to results in the next quarter, not even about what these students have become by today on graduation, but about, as she put it, the learning that molds a lifetime, that transmits the heritage of millennia and shapes the future. And that's what we see here, learning that builds on a heritage of the past and shapes the future.
Looking out at the sea of new minted graduates, it's just extraordinary to think about all of the different things they are going to do, both in the next few months and really in the next many years. It's really one of the very special things about this university, how it
and the
is
fact that
realized through all of these students.
That this tribe also draws people back on their 5th, on their 25th, their 50th reunion. That this place matters to them. The space that is created here, this ceremonial space, this celebratory space, for one day a year, filled with representatives of the whole of Harvard University. We rarely see the university drawn together in one place, and it is only really on this day that we see it, what it means to speak of the university. It's been a pleasure being with you again, Dan.
Diana, it's been wonderful. What a special way to celebrate. Thanks to all of the production staff who made this broadcast possible, and congratulations to all of the students and the parents who are celebrating this day. And the celebrations will continue this afternoon well into the evening.
Happy day of commencement to one and all.
We'll see you again next year, Diana.
I hope so, Dan.